the government will admit it's a sustainable fishery. It ticks all the right boxes, but let's just close it down.
Today on Dirty Linen, we are embarking on a very special mini-series around Port Phillip Bay and the seafood that comes from it, and in some cases does not come from it. We are kicking off this special focus series with Phil McAdam, who is the last remaining sardine fisher in Port Phillip Bay. Phil, welcome to Dirty Linen.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Really great to have you on the show. I guess we're not speaking under the very best of circumstances because your job, your industry as sardine fisher is about to be taken away from you.
Yeah, there's only another 9 days left.
So 9 days as we're speaking, but so when the people are listening, well, I guess what people need to know is the 1st of April is when it all closes down. And I guess, you don't exactly know how many days you've got left because we don't know what the weather does. You can't go out if it's too blowy. Let's just put people in the picture. Can you just explain what it is to be a sardine fisher in Port Phillip Bay? What do you do? What do you go out and get? Like what's daily life like?
Yeah, fishing's a way of life. It's not a job. It's something you do because you love it. But the advantage is you get to feed a lot of people. I left school at the age of 13 and started my fishing career, mainly because the old man done it. I've done that for 45 years. Loved every minute of it, and now we're over the years we've built up a business that's employing 6 people. My 2 daughters work on the boat, and they work at the factory here packaging and bait. It's a family-run business. The supply is 6 incomes, 6 incomes to 6 different households.
And Phil, tell us about, life when you were a kid and what drew you into this world when you were 13.
Oh, I got drew into it long before I was 13. From the age of 4, 5, 6, I was going out with the old man catching fish, And as I said, it's just been a way of life ever since. The advantage of it all is because it's me passion in life, and I've been able to make a good living doing it for the last 45 years, and still love doing it.
And was it your dad that started the fishery, or does it go back even before that?
My grandfather fished too, mainly because the old man fished. I started going with him, and then I brought my own boats, and branched off on my own. It's just been an ongoing thing, and now my daughters are working on the boat, and they wanted to take the business over, but Daniel Andrews has had different ideas.
And tell us about the factory that you've got there in Williamstown, and talk about the boat. Give us a bit of the nuts and bolts of what is it actually like to go out and catch these sardines.
Well, in the last 12 months, I'll give you an idea, last financial year, we supplied over 100 tonne to the food market in Melbourne. And we're one of only 2 fishermen or fishing businesses that is capable of supplying sardines to the Melbourne food market in Victoria. And as I said, we supplied over 100 tonne to the Melbourne food market, and that goes direct off the boat, straight into the seafood centre. The fish are caught usually between 12 and 2 a.m. in the morning, and they're in the seafood centre by 4 a.m. The rest of the state in the last financial year only supplied 8 tonne to the seafood centre. So next year there's going to be a hell of a big hole in fresh local sardines in Victoria.
And Phil, just to put us in the picture, tell us about the boat, tell us about the nets, what is it, what is it actually involved to catch these sardines?
It's all electronics these days, most other fishing. We use sonar to find the shoals of fish at night, and we work at night because that's when the sardines shoal up. If we want to catch anchovy, we go through the day. because that's when they shoal up. But with the sardines, they shoal up at night. We find them electronically and use a purse seine. That basically we just shoot the net around the shoal of fish, and being a purse seine, it purses up at the bottom, we keep hauling the net in until they're all confined into a small area, and then we use dip nets to get them on board the boat.
And how targeted is it?
Oh, very targeted. We'll have 3 ton of sardines in the net and not see one other species of fish. It's very sustainable, very focused on what you're targeting. And electronics these days, I can tell the difference between, a fish that's 4 inches long and a fish that's 2 inches long. The electronics are so good these days. So it allows you to target the size fish you want.
That's really amazing. I mean, so that's obviously pretty different to what your dad would have been doing.
Oh, yeah. When I first started, we didn't even have electronics. We used to go out fishing then and would see a gannet dive on, because the gannets feed on sardines. We'd see a gannet dive in the water and we'd just go and shoot the net around where the gannet dived. It was all pretty back then. But like anything else, we've evolved over the years and we do things a little bit differently now.
Yeah, amazing. And talk about, you've talked about the eating market for the sardines. Can you talk about the bait market as well? Yeah,
I'm capped at 160 tonne in the last few years because of the the Target 1 million program and the buyout of commercial nets in Port Phillip Bay. And because of COVID-19, we've actually the actual eating market, the food market, has increased where the bait market decreased. And the bait market decreased because of the COVID lockdown and nobody was allowed out and all the rest of it. But normally we'd catch around 80 tonne to the food market and 80 tonne to the bait market. And the bait market is high quality bait that we process here in a brine tank, snap frozen in a brine tank in about 15 minutes. Put into the freezer and then packaged later and gets distributed all around Victoria.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to think about Victorian wreck fishers having Victorian bait. That just feels like the right way for things to be.
Well, the wreck fishers think that too. They've been my biggest supporters, but the government just still don't want to take notice for some reason.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So in 2014, the Victorian government, as part of its, an election promise, they committed to phasing out commercial netting in Port Phillip Bay, and that was tied to this Target 1 million plan. And the Target 1 million refers to this campaign or this, program to increase the amount of recreational fishing going on, to increase it from around about, 250,000 licenses to 1 million people out there fishing. And for reasons that are a little bit opaque, they tied this increase in recreational fishing, or this desire for an increase in recreational fishing, to the phasing out of commercial fishing in Port Phillip Bay. Can you talk about this from your point of view, Phil? Like, is this something you'd heard about happening for a while? Did it sneak up on you? And, what did you think about it when you heard about it?
The whole decision, really snuck up on us. It was a complete shock that that they were buying out all commercial licenses. Wasn't voluntary; it would be mandatory. That was a great shock. And when it happens 1st of April, I still don't know how I'm going to handle that. Commercial fishermen haven't been very good at what they do over the years. We've been trying to catch every fish in Port Phillip Bay for 150 years. The thing is, we're not very good at it. That's why there's still plenty of fish out there.
Well, that's something that I suppose is at the forefront of people's minds is sustainability. So, Phil, you've been fishing in the bay for forever. Like, how do the fish numbers seem to you? Does it seem like, it's still a sustainable catch?
Fishing, and when you've been doing it for 45 years, you see the ebbs and flows of a lot of different fish. Some fish are down in numbers, but then other fish have never been any better. And that's always varied because fish breeding is very cycle. It's the snapper I know this year have had a real good breeding recruitment. There's a lot of the eggs survived, and in 5 years' time, there's going to be a lot of just size snapper. Because I'm seeing them with the bait, they're only about an inch long now, and I know with the amount that we're seeing, it's a very good recruitment. Now, the Marine Science Lab in Queenscliff will back that up in a couple of months' time when they do their trawl survey. Sardines have never been better. Like we had a pilchard kill in 95, 96 that devastated pilchard stocks in the southern half of Australia, and that was due to imported fish, imported pilchards feeding corral tuna in South Australia. Now that devastated pilchard stocks for 15 years, and when there's no fresh local bait, they're already importing pilchards from India and other parts of the world. Now, the risk of disease, is very high. And Border Security has actually published a paper warning against this. The importation of pilchards used for bait is very high risk.
Wow. Yes, and just to be clear for people, like pilchards is the name, it's the same as sardines, except when they're used for bait, they're called pilchards, right?
Yeah. Usually, if somebody comes into the factory and asks me for pilchards, I know they're using them for bait. But if they ask for sardines, I know they're going to eat them. But they're the same. Yeah.
So, Phil, I'm really shocked to hear that you got to stop fishing for sardines on the 1st of April. You're still not quite sure what you're going to do. Like, tell me, how are you feeling about things? What's the sort of emotion around this change?
Oh, I get very emotional about it. I've got a grandson, nearly 4 years old, that loves coming out on the boat and all the rest of it, even at a young age. And, I don't know how I'm going to be able to tell him in a couple of weeks' time that there's no more pilchards. He's not going to understand that. I get very emotional about it, very.
And what about your daughters, who had this plan to come into the business, or they're in the business and they wanted to keep going? How are they feeling?
Well, they're not feeling too well either. It's not just them. It's, the other works. There's 6 people involved in the fishery, in my business, and, but, you can say that's bad enough, we'll do it tough. I know I'll do it very tough, but, it's the people of Victoria that are missing out on this. Port Phillip Bay and the fish in it belongs to 6.5 million Victorians, right? They've got the right to access the spoils of Port Phillip Bay. Sardines being one of them, and a lot of other different varieties of fish. At the moment we're catching a lot of whitebait that goes into all the restaurants around Melbourne. Now, all Victorians have got a right to that, not just a couple of 100,000 recreationals. And that's what the government has done. They've locked the resource of Port Phillip Bay and all the fish in it. They've locked it away for a couple of 100,000 recreationals.
But Phil, as you've mentioned, the rec fishers that purchase the pilchards from you, they don't support this. So what do you think's going on?
6 years ago, they got Daniel Andrews to agree to the no netting ban, and they just ran with it without thinking. And they didn't plan it out properly. You know, you had what would you call them? You had a group that got together and campaigned very successfully to the government, spruiking that they had so many hundred thousands of votes for Daniel Andrews, and basically buckled and agreed to it. You know, he thought it was a vote getter. You know,
and I mean this has cost the Victorian people a lot. You know, if we're taking away access to seafood, which, as you say, you know, is our right, it's cost us in terms of the promises to the Target 1 million campaign. It's cost us in terms of the buyouts. So your license, well, you know, I think when the scheme started, the license holders such as yourself were able to access compensation of $310,000 in that first year, and then that reduced by 10% over the following years. So
bit more to it than that. There was three components of the buyout. The licence was valued at $310,000. Boat and gear was valued at $75,000. I've got one net that's worth $75,000. You know, let alone the other shed full of nets. And then you had a component of the buyout that was from loss of income.
And so that was based on 3 times the average annual catch value.
Yeah.
As I understand it. So, I mean, basically for you to stay there fishing, because that's just what you do, you've also taken a hit because the value of the payout has reduced each year, right?
It's reduced each year by 10%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, I could have sat on me bum for the last 6 years, and the first year I threw away $160,000. The second year I threw away $140,000 in the buyout amount, you know. But I just wasn't, and I said to him right from word go, I don't care how much you offer. This is a way of life. It's not about the money, you know. It's not about the money. But that's my personal story. But the message that I really want to get across is the people of Melbourne that are going to miss out on this. You know, I supply sardines to all the major restaurants all over Melbourne. Well, they're just not going to be available anymore. And they're going to be forced to use this muck that's coming in from the places like India and other parts of the country, and it's complete rubbish. They won't even use it for bait. You know, you can't beat that.
Well, what's so good about Port Phillip Bay sardines, Phil?
They're fresh and they're local. You can't beat that. Like, you know, we're catching them at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they're in the seafood centre at 4 o'clock, and they're in the Vic Market at 6.
You cannot compete with that. And once the fishery closes, is it possible to restart it? How hard is it to restart it? You know, is it commercially viable to crank it back up again?
Yeah, history shows once they close a fishery, they don't reopen. History shows that. I've put in a proposal to Melissa Horne's office, which is the Minister for Fishing. I've put in a proposal on how a restart could happen. You know, and I had a meeting with her on this when we were still in lockdown, because it was a Zoom meeting some time ago, and she hasn't even had the decency to get back to me since. You know, and I spent a lot of money getting this proposal all wrote up and, you know, scientific information and all the rest of it. And, yeah, the politician of the day doesn't even have the decency to get back to you. So, yeah, I just don't know.
Yeah, she hasn't got back to me either.
Yeah, so, yeah.
I mean, to me it feels like, you know, she wasn't the Minister for Fishing when this law was passed. She's taken it over from Jala Pulford, who I believe was in the office at the time. I mean, to me, the feeling I get is that no one really wants this to happen, but the wheels are in motion and it just seems too hard for some reason to put the brakes on, turn it around.
No, they're too lazy. They're too lazy to get off their ass and actually do a little bit of work, because it's very easy for it to happen. But as you said, the wheels are in motion. Oh, let's not make waves. Let's just keep along the party line and rah, rah, rah. You know, like from the first announcement of it, you know, it took me 9 months before I got a meeting with Jarla Pulford. And the only thing I received in that 9 month period was one letter from Fisheries Victoria, or Victorian Fisheries Authority as they're known now. You know, that was the only contact in 9 months. You know, we're going to close your business down and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And it took 9 months to get a meeting. And then she had the cheek to come to this meeting and say, I'm going to give you certainty. We're certainly going to chop your head off. This is the way these people treat people. You know. Anyway, a bit speechless with all that. Like, yeah, I get emotionally involved in it, and yeah, it's not a good feeling.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is emotional. I mean, I feel emotional about losing access to seafood, and I think whenever you hear about someone whose livelihood is being taken away, it's always hard to think about. It's hard to hear, and I suppose, you know, and sometimes, you know, you could, like a coal miner, you know, we need to turn that industry around. So when there's an industry that's sustainable, and it's doing, it's getting fresh, healthy food to local people, then it just seems there doesn't seem to be an upside to it.
Yeah, no, well, the government will admit it's a sustainable fishery. You know, it ticks all the right boxes, but let's just close it down. You know, and when this went to Parliament, the Greens have never been like too friendly with the commercial fishermen. You know, we've always clashed heads and all the rest of it. But surprisingly enough, they were the only ones that supported us. They supported us because it was a sustainable fishery, and they could see the sense in keeping this fishery going, and not replacing it from imports from an unsustainable fishery, you know. But the other two parties, it all fell on deaf ears.
Yeah. What are you hearing from chefs and restaurants at the moment, Phil, just about, you know, this about losing access to these sardines?
Yeah, they're not happy. They're not happy. You know, I've got tea from Anchovy at the moment. She wants to go out and get some fresh anchovy to make a traditional fish sauce, you know, because it's not going to be, you know, she's not going to be able to do it in the future. Restaurants all over Melbourne, they're just not happy at all. And I hope they make this government pay when it goes to an election.
Well, I hope they go to the election with a promise to restart it, but it's just the resources and the anguish and the heartache and the interim lack of access to seafood is just really incredibly frustrating. So Phil, what's it going to feel like when you come in with your last catch of sardines?
Not going to be a good feeling. Yeah, I don't know. That's something I've tried not to think about for the last 6 years.
It'll be a sad day. Yeah.
It will be. But it's not just the sardines. You know, there's a lot of other species in the bay that the recreationals don't catch or don't target that are going to be lost to the general public too. You know, it's not just sardines. You know, and to lock that whole resource away to just a couple of 100,000 people. There's 6.5 million people in Victoria that are entitled to share that resource. You know, and the commercials in the past have tapped into that resource for the general public that don't go recreational fishing.
Yeah. Well, I number among those people, and I'm really devastated about it. Phil,
I'm a recreational fisherman too, but just because you hold a recreational fishing licence, it doesn't mean to say you're against commercial fishing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, Phil, well, it's been a privilege to eat your sardines, and it's been really great to get your perspective on this issue. Just feel so sad and sorry for what you and your family and the other people that work with you are dealing with. On behalf of Victorian seafood eaters, if I can be so bold, I really hope we can turn this one around. But thanks so much for sharing with us today.
Yeah, no, great to chat.
Really appreciate it. This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Danny Vallant. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.